Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Go Local Live. I'm Go Local News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for tuning in this Friday afternoon for news, politics, and more. I'd like to welcome in Alex Acosta's successor, Go
Absolutely.
Local.
My deep interest in labor relations.
Go columnist Robert Whitcomb. Thanks for coming in.
Hi, Kate.
I appreciate it. Well, of course, we have to start with the news today.
Didn't surprise me at all. I thought it might take another day, but he's tainted. The implication of intense cover-up in the Miami court system, I think, doomed him.
What was your thoughts this week when the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, there have been obviously legal issues surrounding him, swirling rumors and more.
For years. I mean, a lot of his activities have been well known. As our president, as our maximum leader, noted that Mr. Epstein. Interest in the people of the female persuasion skewed young, I think, something like that. He said tended young. And the rumor, I'd heard something about Epstein off and on for years, and we all deserve a big debt of gratitude to the Miami Herald reporter for getting at that. But what I see is just a massive cover-up because Epstein was so well connected. By the way, in this glitterati status obsessed thing, I was very amused to see a picture of him wearing a Harvard sweatshirt. I'm not sure if you saw that. Apparently, he's given some money. He's given some money, maybe a few $1 million, which is like 2 regulars and a Danish or something, at Harvard to ingratiate himself with Harvard, and because he wanted to glom onto the name. It's this obsession, which I guess all humanoids have, but particularly in America now, with status. With glitz, with name, with branding, and this guy Epstein was just a fanatic about this stuff.
Well, I guess his legal team used when they talked about his activities. They called them young women. Under the age of 18, you are still, in fact, a child.
You're a child under the law, every state, even in Alabama, I think.
And I've seen people say along those lines, well, he paid them, but there's laws in place. This is illegal. This is not. This is not
criminal
legal
laws.
behavior.
This is more than a misdemeanor. So these are criminal acts. But remember that old thing, statutory rape, for example, a man having sexual relations with a girl. I think in most states is under 16. It's a felony, punishable by 5 to 10 years.
Speaking of time, I mean, given all of his connections, given what's happened in the past before, do you expect any substantive jail time out of this?
Yeah, you mean for Epstein? Yeah, I think Epstein, I think the people in New York are going to get him for 4 or 5 years. That would be my guess, something like that.
Okay.
And other people could get drawn into it. I don't think that Trump and Bill Clinton will be, indicted for their connection, for their friendship with Epstein, and for their tendency to go on his airplane and schmooze with him a lot. But I think there's going to be considerable political outflow from this thing, and it may draw in more people, more associates of Epstein who may end up in the slammer too. Not Trump or, just because they're friends with a sleazoid. Hey, what's wrong with that? Friends stay with friends who share their qualities. But
I don't think this is going anywhere anytime soon, and as you said, the potential to bring other names into it as well.
Right.
Well, staying on the topic of national news, Rhode Island in the national news.
Yes, that's
quite a few times this week, Wall Street Journal calling the Providence school system a horror show.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the CNBC rankings placing Rhode Island dead last.
Yeah, let's start with that. The horror show aspect, the school system is totally screwed up. There are too many cooks. The lines of authority are very confused. The contracts are terrible. So we have to speculate, what can the state do? Because the state has to come in. After all, the localities, the cities and towns are legal charter of the state, and the state has a mandate to provide public education. It's actually not ultimately the localities of the state. So what can they do? People say, the state came in and took over Central Falls, and that didn't work out that well. Well, of course, there's some problems which are just very difficult to address. However, in this case, given the importance of Providence, a city of effectively about 200,000 people, in the middle of a metro area of 1.3 million, the capital of the state has to come in and give this a lot of attention. And the question is, does the state try to, in effect, run this, the education czar, run this, or do they get a private company like Achievement First or something like that, some giant charter school operation to take over and be able to get rid of all the contracts, the labor contracts, the other contracts?
Seems to be that, the mayor keeps, pointing to a very big ironclad contract.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see what happens. We did point out, obviously, the performance of Central Falls. And of course, the connection with the new commissioner, with the former head of Central Falls school system, Victor Capayan, coming over to to RIDE to effectively be part of a statewide effort.
I will say, because this thing has gotten so much attention nationally and regionally, that will help. That old cliche, never waste a crisis. But this is so devastating, and so, resolving this, addressing this is so important for the future of the economy and society in Rhode Island. I think something will happen this time. The big question again is whether somebody, be sort of a state czar, will be appointed, or whether they sort of hire some company to basically do most of this work. I do know, it seems obvious they're going to have to go in and throw away a lot of contracts.
We'll keep an eye on it moving forward, and know the commissioner is expected to give some more information on moving forward.
I feel sorry for the commissioner. I mean, she comes in from New York and is presented with this. Now, can we talk about the CNBC thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. There are serious problems around here, but I'm always a little leery of states being compared to states because they're so different. Rhode Island is tiny, and there are all kinds of historical and other explanations of why it falls low in the CNBC rankings. By the way, CNBC tends conservative, as you probably know. I'm not justifying, I'm not trying to defend their low performance, something to bear in mind. It's going to take a long while to change these things. We're still, after all these years, suffering from the kind of the residue of the mill culture. And we never fully, Rhode Island never fully, how do I put this, took on the modern, technologically based economy of, say, Greater Boston.
Well, we'll see what happens next week. Wexford, just behind us here in downtown Providence.
Yeah,
the
very
ribbon
impressive.
cutting
Very impressive.
will be taking place. So it'll be very interesting to see what takes place there, because
Yeah.
that's really that first stake in the ground of 195 development.
Right.
In terms
And we'll
of
see if
jobs
they
and
can
tech.
get more stuff from this, becomes something a little bit more of a nodule in the Boston, or the megalopolis, which may save it. And also things like quality of life, very difficult thing to quantify. The quality of life side, they didn't do that badly, probably because of the bay and everything is so easy to get to. You can walk everywhere, including to the state line, which is very important.
And it is summer in New England and summer here in Rhode Island, which is, I just think, the
hurricane
best.
season is coming. And,
Of course, you always look to the flip side of it.
tidal waves.
All the death and destruction.
Absolutely.
But what can we expect from you in your column this weekend?
Well, I talk about the schools. I talk about it's sort of I engage in a little nostalgia about a summer job as a camp counselor in a swamp in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and how it's necessary, how you present yourself when you are supervising people who are bigger than you are, how to deepen and make your voice louder. I also talked about quitting, I did talk about quitting, the importance of knowing when to quit, like Eric Swalwell, who quit quickly shortly after the debate. We tend to head for the exits too late, in my experience, whether running something or a relationship or
Well,
whatever.
considering the crowded Democratic field,
I
we'll have
know.
to see when
It's like
the next shoe
It's
drops,
like
and the other shoe, and the other shoe.
Manhattan phone
and the other
book.
shoe.
But I also talk about, this is very important, I think the killing, that horrible killing, GoLocal, the video. We have to reevaluate the 2 o'clock closing time. The later the closing time, the more violence. I think it should be brought back to 1 or even 12:30. This will hurt some of these businesses, but not as much in the long run as Providence developing a reputation as a very dangerous place at night. You also, of course, need much more police visibility. Visibility, very important. But I think the closing hours have to be brought back. Very important.
Well, we'll continue to follow, because of course the last Board of License hearing, the police weren't able to obtain the footage from inside the club. They had to file a warrant to obtain Apparently, the club did not have the password. So
That's right.
That's I
That's
think
right,
a very
yeah.
important piece moving forward because, of course, it's that nexus as their
Right.
lawyer keeps going back to. What started in the club, but everybody knows it's the club culture.
It's the
But then
club
there's- but then
culture.
there's the
They're
legal
drunk.
side
They
of
may
it.
be on drugs. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You don't see too many bar fights at 8 a.m.
Not many. A few bars open at 8 a.m.
Yeah, a
but
few, yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah,
that's for
yeah.
another time. Well, we'll let you go kick
Okay.
off your weekend, and we'll get to our
Okay.
next guest. Thank you,
See you
Robert
soon.
Whitcomb.
Bye-bye.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with our next guest here on Go Local Live.